Call to order the Gateway Board of School Directors Study Session meeting for Tuesday, August 11th, 2020. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Order, Gateway Board of School Directors Study Session meeting for Tuesday, August 11th, 2020. Why are we here? Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Ritter. Bonnie, can you do a roll call of attendees, please?
Yes. Mr. Caleri.
Here.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Here.
Mrs. Delaney.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Gottman.
Here.
Mr. McIntyre.
Here.
Mr. Ritter.
Here.
Mrs. Warning. And Mr. Williams.
Here.
I apologize for the lateness, but I would like to report that the board had an executive session at 6:15 p.m. this evening to discuss personnel, contract information, and possible litigation issues. At this time, on the agenda is comments from residents on agenda items.
So if I could have Luke come in, please. Paul, could Luke use your microphone? So if you bend your microphone. Yeah. So Luke.
Come on right here, Luke.
So you would stand right here, Luke.
Hi, Luke. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, I'm good.
What year are you in school, Luke?
I'm going to be a senior this year.
Is it senior?
Yeah, I'm going to be a senior.
So let me ask you a question. What brings you here tonight? Are you on one of the sports teams?
Yeah, I'm on cross country.
And?
Track.
Track. And what would you like to say tonight about cross country and track?
Well, I'd like to say this. I think they shouldn't cancel it because, for one, the risk of one of us getting the virus and dying from it is less than getting struck by lightning. So, on top of that, for the most part, we can social distance during sports. I mean, you can go out there, we can run single file, we wear masks when we're not running.
Do you run like through Boys Park and do long distance cross country? Okay.
Yeah. And I'd say even most sports should be okay, but even if other ones aren't, cross country should be fine because you can do more social distancing and stuff in cross country. That's just the way it is. I mean, you don't really have to come in. Huh?
Especially if you run really fast.
Well, we're not supposed to run fast. We're supposed to run long.
Pace yourself.
Cross country, Mr. McCleary.
Can I interrupt you real quick? Bonnie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you put up those pictures for me, please? I had talked to Luke's mom. I worked with Luke in kindergarten, and I have followed him all the way through.
You're not going to embarrass him.
And in middle school.
And middle school, and you'll see the picture. I get very emotional because when you see what an activity does for a child, you can't help but you just can't understand it.
All right, so Luke, I see that you're wearing a medal, and I'm going to ask you what that is in a moment, but I've watched this young man for a couple of years now on the track, and you can tell that when some students run, you know, they have a hope in their eyes of winning and stuff like that. When this young man runs, there is a fire that inspires people. And what does it feel like, Luke, when you run by and some of your teammates say, "Go, Luke, go"? What does that feel like to you?
Well, usually that doesn't happen because usually my teammates are running with me in the same race.
No.
I love your
I'm
answer.
talking about track, not cross country, track. You know, you're dying, you know, you got a quarter mile to go, you're huffing and puffing, and all of a sudden you hear Coach Ritter say,
I mean, I'll say this, I'm not usually dying because usually when I have a good race, I'm not going as Usually when I try to huff and puff real hard, that's a bad race. But anyway, yeah, it feels pretty good, and it does make me want to speed up and try to finish better.
All right, so Val has some pictures, and tell me about that medal.
This is, it was actually my birthday. We ran it, and it was also Friday the 13th, which I was also born on a Friday.
Wasn't March 13th, was it?
No, it was September. I remember March 13th.
I remember March 13th.
We've had a lot of lucky Friday the 13th.
That's right.
But anyway, so they put Jason on this. I got 7th place. It was probably my best race of the year. And I just pretty much went out, didn't really try hard, and just did what I was supposed to do, and it was a lot better.
Okay, thank you.
That was the first race I actually did that, and that's kind of the mindset I've tried to have ever since, because it works.
All right, thanks. Anyone?
Can I ask Luke a question?
Yeah.
Luke, can you tell everybody how you would feel if sports was canceled for you?
Cross country, I would be very disappointed, and I'm sure all my teammates would be too.
And thank you for showing up here, Luke.
You're
I've
welcome.
known you a long time. Probably don't realize that, but
Yeah.
I can give everyone an update as to where we're at.
Yeah.
We have received guidance from Governor Wolf's office that his recommendation is to not allow athletics extracurricular activities until January at
Yeah, I
least
heard that.
2021. State Organization for Athletics met last week.
They're gonna decide in 2 more weeks.
Yeah, so they've allowed for a 2-week moratorium on that. A
Yeah.
number of school districts have sent letters in support
Yeah.
of the VIAA. We have done the same. And we are hopeful that within the next 2 weeks, we hear something that would allow all of our student athletes and marching band and everyone else to continue.
There is
Hopefully
one additional update. There is a House bill, I don't have the number off the top of my head, proposed by Representative Mike Reese, press release today, that they are promoting a bill to put that decision in the hands of you-know-who, the individual school boards. So
I mean, yeah,
there's
that
also
makes more
possible that
sense.
that it'decision would come back down to us in a couple weeks
Yeah.
if that bill passes.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for showing up tonight and understand that we are all in support of you. And hopefully we're able to see things adjust.
Absolutely.
Thanks for bringing your mom tonight, right
Yeah.
there.
Thanks,
I
Mom.
got your picture up, Luke.
I think.
Yeah, there's your picture, Luke. Look behind you.
Where's Luke's mom?
Good pick.
Hi.
Yeah.
You don't want to be on camera.
I was supposed, my teammates feel the same. I was supposed to have, Joey Story was supposed to come too, but he had to work, but he would have said the same thing as me.
Excellent.
And I know there's another real dedicated runner, Brady Sundin, who would be, I mean, running is basically his life. He's like 10 times more dedicated than I am. But the thing is, he's really quiet. So he doesn't really like to talk and stuff. He's just like, but he's really into running. And if he'd be like super mad if it got canceled.
All right.
He'd
That's
be
neat.
devastated.
So
Can I
listen,
ask your mom a question? Can I ask
Yeah.
your mom a question?
Yeah.
Hi, Luke's mama, Paul. How would you feel if sports were canceled?
could you come in? Could you come in, please?
Yeah, you have to come in. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Right here, please.
So did you go?
Don't worry, Mom. You only be on YouTube forever.
I'm a better writer than speaker, so this is not easy. I feel a lot of things, but it's been a long road the last 12 years, and it's been great here at this school. And just to think that their senior year could be completely erased with, when you think about sports, you have to look at the whole child and the whole experience in school. Yes, education is extremely important, but sports helps education. And it helped his education, helped him focus. I mean, there's so many skills that he's learned just by races, by being with a team, learning how to lose gracefully.
That's exactly right.
You know, the coaches have been such great mentors to him, teachers too. And I just think, you know, you need the whole thing for the full picture. I know that, you know, people have been saying that, you know, education should come first, and it does, but, you know, there's a bigger picture to that. You need to have a lot of kids, especially Luke and, you know, a lot of other kids, they need to have the sports.
It's a well-rounded student. And,
Right.
As principal several years ago, and that's one of the things I've always maintained, that we offer so many opportunities for our children that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I always urged, get involved in something,
Mm-hmm.
because it is that camaraderie and everything you talked about right there.
There's so many things that you learn that
All
sets you
positives.
up for life.
Yep. So well said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good.
Sound good?
Sorry.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for
We
being our
appreciate
guest
it.
tonight.
Very good, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck.
See you later.
Thanks, Luke.
That's right.
Very good. How do you like that new track?
It's cool.
Nice? Spongy?
Yeah, it's really high end. Our season was canceled before the first meet, but we did get around on it.
Big difference between that one and the old one?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we're gonna get less injuries. It's gonna be a little more comfortable, a lot better.
Excellent. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Luke.
All right, so thank you, Mary Beth, for allowing me to bring Luke in. I just
Thank you
wanted
for
to
bringing in
to
a guest.
let
That was a
folks
good idea.
know that the school board is right now backed into a corner. We have the education, we have the student safety, we have the sports, we have all of these things that have been brought forward as a challenge to us, and so we're doing our level best on all accounts. Thank you.
Bonnie, are there any comments submitted prior to the meeting?
Nothing up there yet.
Mrs. Isha, can you hear me?
I have not received any.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and I did want to point out that tonight is a regular board meeting, whereas our last meeting was a special meeting, and we took over 150 Q&As. This is our regular agenda, so it's not really a Q&A session. It's comments on agenda items, but if the public does have questions, I would still encourage them to email the board email address, which goes to all of us and Dr.
Yes.
Short.
And-
So if
and-
you have questions that need answered, you can still submit those via email. So at this time, I'm going to move to Section B, Bills and Financial Reports, Budget Transfers. Mr. Schott.
Thank you, Mrs. Cerrucci. Section B, financial reports, specifically comprised of Section B1, list of bills for the month of August 2020, and also Section B2, the monthly financial statements for the month of July 2020. We present these two sections this evening for the board's review.
Okay, I'd like to open the floor for any questions for Mr. Schott. Anyone? Okay, seeing none, we were going to move to item C, items previously tabled. I think, Mr. McIntyre, you wanted to comment on this?
Yeah, for the time being, because there's a resolution in the agenda later, down the list. I think for the time being, we're just going to leave this table and see where we go from there.
Okay, everybody's okay with that? I will move on to Section D, Personnel Agenda. We do have some action items. Mrs. Crump, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Ms. Cerrucci. We do have 4 action items. Resolved that the Gateway Board of School Directors accepts and approves the personnel agenda items 1 through 3 as listed in Section D. Under employment, we have 4 teachers we are recommending as we start school on Monday. We're also recommending the appointment of an acting assistant middle school principal and recommending under number 3, the increase of building substitute rate of pay to $125 per day. That is not our day-to-day subs, that is just our building level subs who report every day.
Okay, is there a motion to approve 1 through 3?
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. McIntyre, second by Mr. Williams.
The one
It's
twenty-five?
yeah, go ahead. I'd like to open that up for questions, Mr. Clary.
I'm sorry, I just asked, and everybody already shook their head at me, but it was number 3. Is that 125? That's an increase?
Yeah,
Yes.
Mrs. Crump, what was the previous rate? Was it 100?
Our daily rate is 110. This would
110.
be the building rates, substitute rates to 124.
And this is because we anticipate a possibility of having a hard time acquiring substitutes?
Well, we're doing it for several reasons. One is we were trying to constitute a way to make sure that we ensure that the substitutes that we have know all of our procedures, and our building subs will start with in-service, so they'll be there for all the professional development. They'll be there for the online training, which will give them a little bit of experience when they need to substitute for a teacher that's off. So there will be some higher expectations.
I have another question from
I
Mrs.
have a
Warning.
question. How many days will these building subs be in the building? Are they going 4 or 5 days?
They get at least 4 days. It will be up between them and the principals if they're needed on the Wednesdays. They will have the opportunity to come in on Wednesdays if needed.
Okay, here's a question that I just want to put out there. You want these dedicated subs, all right? What incentive are you giving them to bring them only in 4 days, depending on the principal, which they will be making 500. Last year, they made 550 a week. So you're decreasing them, and who's to say if they are not working on a Wednesday, that they will not go out and get another substitute position, and then when they come back on a Thursday, Friday, they could be a carrier. That's just something that I'm questioning. So my question is it possible that they come back 5 days, or else raise the rate to put an incentive for these substitutes to stay here?
The board has the right to do that. Like I said, we just did 125 based on the research that I did. That's higher than what the other districts are doing. To date, we have all of them filled except for 2, and we still have phone calls out on that. But we could raise that.
Is what I'm saying is they're making less money than what they did last year to be dedicated subs. So my question was, what would be the incentive? Are they aware that they would only possibly be working 4 days?
Yes, they are. My understanding is Kelly Services gives them that information when we put it out. We told them that it would be guaranteed at least 4, and that they will have the option of 5. Some substitutes like having that day off, so that way they can schedule doctor's appointments, that type of thing with it. As there are building subs, they're not allowed through Kelly Services to work anywhere else during the school year.
Okay.
So is it possible, Mrs. Crump, if some of the principals needed a 5-day, that you could just have multiple positions? You could have a 4-day sub and a 5-day sub?
They can work as many days as they're needed for. We guaranteed them at least 4. And then they, like I said, they have the option of 5. So the principals, if they have things for them to do on the Wednesday off, they can work one-on-one with students. They can assist teachers however they're needed, as long as it's instructional.
How many total are you looking to hire?
We have 18.
And how many have you filled so far?
We have all but 2.
So you filled 16 out of 18 at 125 per day.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think that was my question. I was going to ask, and she just answered. I wanted to know what was our total that we're starting out with building something. She's saying 16, and then, okay.
We need 2
So
more.
those
The
that
goal would
will
be
have-
18.
And if we need more, then we'll get the rest from Kelly. But these are the ones we're guaranteed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think you're correct. In anticipation, we would probably need more, so.
All right. So if we have trouble filling position, you can come back to us and let us know.
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Okay. Is there any more questions, comments before I call the question? Seeing none, roll call, Bonnie?
Okay, Mrs. Cerrucci,
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney,
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher,
Aye.
Mr. Gottman,
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre, Mr. Ritter,
Aye.
Mrs. Warning,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Caleri.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Carries 9-0.
Thank you very much. And then under items for discussion for next week's agenda, we do have under resignations, 3 listed, 2 are retirement. So we want to congratulate Becky Gallagher, who's been with the district for 28 years. And also Maria Ripper, who's been with the district for 24 years. Under leave of absence, we have 5 listed. We have 1 transfer. We are also recommending 4 teachers for tenure. Based on school code, after a temporary teacher has served with the district for over 3 years with satisfactory evaluations, they're automatically granted tenure through Title 24. So these are our 4 teachers who have just finished their 3 years as of last year with satisfactory, and we congratulate them and welcome them as contracted teachers. Under supplemental contracts, we have several listed for the fall, and we have 3 volunteers.
Okay, I'd like to open up for questions or discussion.
Can I say something?
Sure can, Mr. Goldman.
First, with the resignations, I want to congratulate Ms. Ripper. She was actually my 6th grade teacher here. And between her and Mrs. Say, they've had amazing programs that they've done. And there's 2 that to this day I will never forget. We got to do one lesson where we had an island, and us as a class got to build it from the ground up with economy, resources, learn how basically a country operates. And the other was simulating Ellis Island, where we got to play roles as either doctors or immigrants and learn how all that went about. It was, as I said, it's unforgettable. And I want to wish her the very best, the next step in her life. And just a question, and if this sounds more executive, please stop me, I will not be offended. With the supplementals, I know the PIA is still deliberating on what we're going to have, anything going on for the fall of sports and band and whatnot. Is it possible to either hold off or put a clause in where if we don't have the sport, then we don't, pay out the money? Because I looked at this, and just based on the first page alone, rough estimate about $32,000 that if we don't have any sports, we just sign that off that we could be using for other purchases in the event that happens. I mean, as much as I would love to have our sports, but is there a way we can put a clause in there?
I'll research that with Mr. Dice. As we said, this is just for the study session, so we can research that for the official voting meeting for next week.
And we may have, as I explained to Mrs. Cerrucci earlier, that information should be coming out prior to next Tuesday's board meeting from the PIAA. So we should have more information by then.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
I totally agree with Mr. Gottman. I think that we don't want to be in a situation where we're paying money to work that wasn't performed. If we can do an MOU if we have to, or write the contract that's a per month basis or something, but I think that's an excellent point, Mr. Gottman, and I'm with you. Anybody else?
Yes, I see that we have a police officer that is leaving. How many will that leave us with?
That gives us about 10. I spoke with Mr. Saranovic and Officer Key today just to check to see how we are with scheduling. They feel comfortable right now with anticipations with starting with half students. And so we are going to evaluate that as we go along.
So you are still planning to have a police officer at every school?
I did not look at the schedule personally. I just talked to them. I can get it tomorrow and give you an update on it.
All right, thank you.
Well, last call. All righty. Moving along to section F. Administrative resolutions. We do have a couple action items. Dr. Short.
Dr. Rossi, would you take the elementary education portion?
Sure. Item number 1 is approve the agreement with Acadians Learning Online Item number 2 is to approve the agreement with Sprout Center for Emotional Growth and Development for training on childhood mental health and behavior. Falls within the standards set forth by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That would be the trauma training.
Item number 3 is a moratorium of all indoor facility agreements effective immediately until further notice.
That's it for action items, so I'd like to,
Second.
thank you. I got a motion by Mr. Williams, second by Mr. McIntyre. I'm trying to do that for Bonnie since she's not in the room.
Thank you. Yes.
God, Bonnie.
Okay, I'd like to open up for discussion.
All right, I'll go first.
Okay,
I'm
Mr.
wondering if we're going to have a moratorium on all indoor facility agreements. In this little rock in a pond, there are ripples that go out. So the goal of throwing the rock in the pond is to try to keep the students and the staff safe. So why wouldn't we prevent anyone from coming to the school who may have had contact with someone who may have had COVID? That would be fire, emergency, post office, electrical workers, anybody. So in other words, if we take this tag, I can't find in my own mind a way to resolve a good cutoff point. So I fall back, when I get myself trapped into a logical trap like that, what I do is I fall back and ask the question, why am I trying to think this thing through? So I think if people follow protocols, like a UPS driver that comes here and delivers computers or something like that, they're already under a protocol where they do what they do in a safe manner. So if the people who rent our facilities do it according to all protocols, such that it would be no less unsafe than anything else, like going to the grocery store or the post office, then I can't see why it would be good for us to take a tack that can't be provably sound with respect to stopping the spread of COVID. I want something to be provably sound, and I'm not finding it in this administrative resolution. That's all.
Yes.
Good point.
The rationale behind it is understanding that next Monday, with the return of 300 teachers, staff into the buildings, and then subsequently within the next couple of weeks, nearly, we'll say 2,000 students returning, understanding that 1,000 may be online. We're taking every possible precaution to ensure that we are in control of our environments based off of the cleaning with Mr. Brown, to put people at ease, our staff, our teachers and parents. We did this as a 1-month moratorium, very similar to other school districts which are doing, to allow the process to unfold and then open it up.
So, Mr. Brown's here, so I'm going to toss a question to you in a second.
I was going to kind of go off your ripple effect. So the YMCA that provides the service for us, so you're saying they're not going to be able to provide that service like the
We've asked for information from Mr. Dice on the possibility of allowing the YMCA to continue because of the essential need for students in daycare. So
So I thought the advice was what you do for one, you do for all. Has that changed, Mr. Dice?
no, what you do for one, you do for all.
And what you expect from them. Also, you expect everybody to follow all CDC's and state health department education guidance. We expect that from everyone, including ourselves. So I guess that brings us to Bob Brown. So if you could use Brian Gutman's microphone, does it seem reasonable to you that if everyone followed the protocols, that it wouldn't be helpful to put the brakes on folks who have, already invested time to plan to have contracts using some of our facilities here at the school?
Can you start with, maybe just so the public knows, John, can you explain the protocols for cleaning our facilities on the weekends as well as during the week, just so people understand?
different time frames. One when folks are in our buildings and one when there are no teachers and kids in our buildings. Daily, on the weekdays, once everybody is gone, we actually have increased what we have to do. We have to clean, we have to disinfect, we have to rinse every part of every building, not only the classrooms, but all of the common areas as well. That takes quite a bit of effort, where every one of our staff members handles 13 to 14 classrooms plus common areas. So if you can imagine how much cleaning and touch points are in every one of those areas, that we have to do that on a daily basis to make sure it is completely sanitized and ready to go for the next morning, and then do it all again the next night.
So, in other words, Bob, without the rentals being there, I think it's safe to say you guys are going to be very challenged to accomplish that. It's something you guys can do, but
We've added a few steps to our process to ensure that that was all done. So on the weekdays and in the evenings when you have rentals in the building, it does get in the way. It causes extra work, and we don't know where the folks come from or what they were doing. They're not necessarily the same folks that were here during the day. So we have to keep that in mind. The weekend is a little different. You know, we have folks in here now. We clean, they clean, and it's all completely done, again, before any of our folks come back in on a Monday. It's a little different on the weekend, just because we don't have the extra workload, because we've already done that. So it's a standalone permit per se. So if there's one group in here, we're not bringing in 45 people to clean. We're bringing in 1 or 2 to handle the needs of that program. So they are completely different. The standalone ones on a weekend, they're not an issue for us. But the nighttime, when we have 13 and 14 classrooms to clean, hallways, bathrooms, it does become a tough evening. So
let me see if I can
there is
understand
a
what you're saying.
difference.
So there are many classrooms, and we have enough staff to clean all the classrooms. And let's say someone rents out the swimming pool. So that's a small enclosed area, and they do something, they have a birthday party, whatever the thing is, okay. So the staff come in and they clean just the pool because just the pool was rented, or just the basketball court was rented, or whatever the small area was. That's not the entire set of all schools, right?
That is correct. But if it's on a weekday, that adds to the workload.
Very good.
You know, on a weekend, totally different situation, because we're bringing folks in just to handle that specifically.
Gotcha.
Can I ask you a couple questions on that topic? You said we're bringing in a couple people on the weekends. So somebody gave the impression that your workers couldn't handle this cleaning and or they didn't want the overtime. Can you answer to that, please?
Our workers have lost a lot of time working and money since this pandemic has begun. They actually enjoy those type of overtimes because it's not adding to their normal day. You know, if you have 8 hours and have to work another 6 or 8 hours and get up the next day and do it. They actually look forward to those type of activities. Unfortunately, we can't have it both ways. You know, it's gotta be all or nothing to be fair to everybody. So, and that doesn't actually even speak to the concerns that, that actually are being talked about. It's not about the rentals and being in here. It's about how the families feel, and their safety. So our people like it. They really do. And for the most part, the people we have here, they're all good to work with. But I guess doesn't necessarily fit into what is being discussed.
Very good. Thanks, Bob.
Very nice, Bob. Thank you.
Bob, real quick. The way that your staff is cleaning, when someone's here? Is it any different? You might have already answered this. Is it any different than when they are cleaning for the students?
No, it is not. We take the cleaning we take that very serious no matter who's here. Our protocol is still the same. You know, we have certain steps that we follow in order to make that happen. So whatever we do on a Saturday or a Sunday for somebody is no different than what we do on a Monday or a Tuesday. The big difference is we don't have to do all of it. You know, we don't have to do the classrooms versus, you know, the activity on a weekend because they're standalone. But the process is the same.
Didn't you also tell me that because the renters are also doing their own cleaning, that in your opinion, it was
Some of
actually
them.
being cleaned in some instances?
Under the current conditions of the COVID pandemic, the ones that we have here currently, which is limited, they are also concerned about the people they have coming here, and they are actually cleaning in between our cleanings. So there's more cleaning being done in that particular instance. But I mean, I can't say that would be the same for somebody coming in and using the swimming pool per se. But at this point, the groups we have here, they're jumping in because they want their folks to be safe as well.
How many renters do we have right now?
Right now, we have one outside group.
One.
One. Basically, it's the time of year. We have a lot of folks wanting, as soon as school starts,
What type of organizations might we be turning away?
Well, we have things like the Girl Scouts. We have
the beekeepers.
We have beekeepers, which is on the agenda for down the road a little bit. We have all of our own things that are in here. PTOs, FTOs coming in to plan things. We have Monroeville Recreation, which has all kind of art programs that they hold, learn to swim programs. So all of those are outside organizations that normally use our buildings 6 days a week.
Forbes Road Career Technical Center, sometimes they have people come over to like the PSBA, sometimes they rent that out and, you know, students cook up sandwiches.
Not a whole lot with us.
Yeah, I'm just saying, other organizations that provide education.
That ask to use our facility.
No, I'm saying Forbes Road has people come into
into
Forbes
theirs.
Road that they rent out. So every school has to ask and answer the same question.
I mean, we are a public facility. We are the community center.
All right, so if folks have questions, they can get in touch with Paul. Just send him an email. No, I'm just saying. We have about a week to get some input from.
No, this is not. This is an action item.
This is an action item?
We're voting on this tonight. This is why this is very important.
Oh, you're right. Action item says at the top. Okay.
On one of the couple things that Mr. Ritter brought up. Yeah, whenever we compare, and you can probably answer this. We have a subcontractor in to do work. You're overseeing that work. Okay, so we know that the guidelines are being followed. Because you're saying that the groups come in, they follow the guidelines. What's the so the Postal Service, all the other groups, they're under their own type of thing. That we don't have, correct me if I'm wrong, the ability to ensure that every group that comes in is following the proper protocol.
That's correct.
Okay.
We could change board policy.
It's in good faith that that individuals are doing it, but it's not necessarily any way that we can ensure that happens. So my mind's saying if I can't guarantee that a renter on Tuesday evening is following the protocol, then I'm going to have to make sure that I do the extra work just in case it wasn't.
That is correct. We do not have the resources or bodies to do that. The folks that are here at the time, they have duties to perform, not to police police social distancing and whatnot. They actually are here to perform a job.
Very good. Thanks, Bob.
Mr. Gallagher, a policy amendment could be a way to address that, which is Mr. Ritter and I were on a conference call
It could be on a
today.
checklist. In other words, we sent out a 2-pager that says, we expect you to wash this and do that and stay like this, and then sign here that you've read the above and you agreed to follow out, follow these,
I have similar policies in my work outside of being the school board director, and it doesn't always work out the way the way that we hope.
Or even I've talked to Mr. Dice about revising our rental contract agreement, and we can put whatever we want in those agreements moving forward to follow recommended guidelines by CDC in regards to COVID.
I agree. After actually taking a good look at the policy, our rental agreements through all this, I think probably a policy committee meeting should happen fairly soon to kind of, I think there's a lot of wording in there that we can revise and shape up a good bit, and a few things we can add.
And the changes in policy and everything can happen, but that's separate from the motion that's before us, so we're.
No, but you said there were no ways to address this, and I'll bring it up because there are ways we can address it.
Right now, they're not. So the motion before us, we have no way to release that.
And understand that, as Bob Brown said so well, I might add, that it's just peace of mind. People coming back, controlled environment, at least for a month. That's all we were looking for, a moratorium.
It doesn't say a month on your motion. Are you amending it to be 30 days only?
We were looking for a 1 month
It says
moratorium.
until further notice.
Could you read that out loud, please, Mary Beth?
It says moratorium of all indoor facility agreements effective immediately until further notice.
Could we amend that?
Sure, we can amend it.
Well, I'm not comfortable amending it at this point. We can if you guys vote to, but I want to talk about the YMCA because the YMCA, okay, let me back up. So we have families in our community who have children that are under the age of being able to take care of themselves, where they require a babysitter, and we have parents that are both working. And we've already discussed this when we have talked about whether we have a 5-day option for elementary age kids or not. And we have a distinct group of people in this community that do not have childcare for their kids because they both work and they're only going to be coming to school 2 days a week. So we have the Wednesday off, and then we have the cohort Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. Now, YMCA sent all of us an email saying they wanted to start renting our facility. In addition to providing before and after school care, they wanted to provide care on Wednesdays, if we would allow them, and include help with our students on their schoolwork. Now, I'm personally not willing to give that up for a moratorium when I know that Mr. Brown and his crew are thoroughly cleaning our facilities in the ways that he's described to me. I think that Mr. Dice said, what we do for one, we do for all. And are you willing to sacrifice the YMCA for 30+ days and childcare and tutoring help for our families in our community that are in need? I'm not.
I guess the other consideration is, and this is not related to school board, but the school is a business. Many businesses are suffering. Many businesses are trying to find a way to get back to normalcy. And so it would be good if we found a way to take leadership with that. It's very difficult to do because we're in a no-win situation, as are many small and large businesses. So I think I'm uncomfortable not leading in this. So if we've already got good protocols in place, we've already got contracts with people who are known to us, and they respect us, we respect them. They're offering good money. We have good relationships with these people. They don't want to harm or abuse the school. They want to do nice things for our kids and bring good services here. So I would be in favor of, if I were a business, and we are, of leaning in favor of trying to keep the doors open rather than trying to be afraid of opening the doors.
I agree with you to an extent, but I strongly disagree with the logic behind it. We are a business, and that business, first and foremost, is education for our enrolled students. I think this administrative recommendation, by the way, the man right here put this on the agenda because he feels this is the safest and best way to keep moving forward. the idea behind this is to allow our maintenance staff, who they have a monumental task ahead of them every day of the week this year. They have to clean, sanitize, and scrub every surface in every building every day without having to worry about a single rental. I think that's a mountain to ask them to do. I think until we can actually get a flavor for how that's going and how well we're able to follow those protocols, and if we need to hire more, if we're having problems here, having problems there. This is all new for these guys too. I think we put at least a pause on these rentals to give our staff a chance, a fair and even chance to do everything they have to do to protect and sanitize these buildings for the well-being of our children.
I like the way you said that, Rick.
Thanks, John.
When we vote for this, some are going to vote one way and some are going to vote the other way. Whichever way any one of us vote, it's not because we disagree completely with the other side. So if you vote in favor of opening the doors, it's not because you want to keep the kids unsafe. On the other hand, if you vote to keep the other businesses out, it's not because you're anti-business. So we're a board. We've got 9 votes here. We're going to make some decision, and it's going to be the best we can.
Well, you believe we can do
tonight.
both, educate our kids safely and allow our community to use facilities that they are
And
taxpayers
that's
for
what
that
this
belong
vote's
to
gonna
them
be.
as well,
Right. Bingo.
and provide important services to our community. Is there
Any
any
other-
other comments on this?
Yeah, can I piggyback on that too, in terms of what Rick is saying? When you have facilities, even though you have protocols in place, like John Ritter said, I know people, when they tell me they just go to the Pitcairn post office, people will not put on their masks. You have individuals who are not going to follow protocol. If you're not going to police them to make sure they follow protocol, then what have we done? We're right back where we started. And that's my concern. That's been the concern that individuals, particularly teachers being in the building, have expressed, is that they don't see us making people follow protocols. And if you're not going to do that, then what's the point? They feel unsafe and insecure.
That's like Dr. Short says about controlling the environment.
Strong argument.
But you also have to take into consideration the disservice we're doing to everybody by eliminating the YMCA that people count on. This is hard for everybody, and, for some people, that's going to be their lifeline. For a lot of people, that's going to be their lifeline, that are individually struggling with their families, and who's going to help watch their kids. That's where I'm hung up on.
Right, I can't guarantee things, but it is, John alluded to, and others. There are a lot of places that are not operating the normal way, that have facilities large enough that may be able to partner with the YMCA until we get things corrected here, so that those programs can still be offered in the community. When you drive around Monroeville and you look at the facilities that are around, we're not the only game in town. And I know the Y wants to provide a program, and I know the Y has worked with other organizations in the past to be able to provide that. So I don't want us to think that any type of moratorium says there's not going to be any Y childcare in all of Monroeville, Pitcairn. But it may not be able to be housed here, initially until these things are taken care of. It doesn't eliminate it; it changes it.
To follow this new schedule and to get this stuff done, and then if confident that we can start adding rentals on top of what they already have to do, I got no problem. But I want it to come from these guys that we're ready to do that.
So you keep implying that we're not, and that is not the message that I got from my conversations with Mr. Brown. I was told that our staff enjoys the overtime because they really don't have any at all. So I'm not sure why there's such a disconnect in whether our staff can or can't handle it and whether it's too much for them or not too much for them.
I don't think we know yet until we get into it.
Well, can I just interrupt? I've had the pleasure of watching our custodians work. They are so thorough in what they're doing. How much more are you going to expect them to do with every nook and cranny they're going to be cleaning? Is there much more involved than what they're doing right now? Because I know the custodial staff that I see, they hit every spot in a classroom, every desk, under the desk, the chairs. And I know these are going to be the areas, items that we're looking at.
We have added steps to our process in order to ensure that we are disinfecting things nightly. It does add time to our day. Everything takes time. So in order to disinfect, you have to have what is called dwell times. They need to get it on there. They need to let it do its job. And then we need to go back and rinse. So all those surfaces that are being touched instead of once is 3 times. So that adds a lot of area. Whether or not a child is in a desk or they're off that day, it still gets done because other people were in the room and could have touched it and whatnot. So we don't get that option. We have to clean everything every day with these additional steps. Weekdays are different than weekends. You know, unfortunately, we have to lump them all together. But the weekdays, we have a lot of work to do. And with school going to start up, if we have people here on the weekends, how do we not have people here on the weekdays? Yeah, that's the 2 different scenarios that we have to deal with. So, but there is definitely extra steps and extra times, and they're going to be working very hard to get their areas done on a daily basis.
And that's during the week.
And that's just the after hours work. All our daylight custodians have extra duties as well to sanitize all the touch points 2 more times a day, along with all their other duties that they have to handle. So they're going around to every touch point in the common areas throughout the days. So that's all your door handles, lavatory faucets, panic hardware. It takes quite a bit of time to go around the building to hit those areas. It's not a 5-minute job. It's going to take 45 minutes to an hour to go around just to hit those common areas. So something else is not getting done. You know, it's not that they're sitting waiting for work. They're, you know, for somebody to call for them to do something. So whatever they have to do, this is on top of it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? You need to call the question? Okay. We want to vote on item 3 separately. Mrs. Isha?
We can do that, yes. This vote can be for 1 and 2, and then we can go with 3 separately. That would be fine.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do a call for 1 and 2, please.
Mrs. Delaney?
Oh, this is for 1 and 2.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gallagher?
Aye.
Mr. Gottman?
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mrs. Warning?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Caleri? Was that an aye? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah.
He said yes.
And okay, Mrs. Ruth?
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, do we need a motion and second for number 3?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Williams, second by Mr. Gottman.
And then we're going to just go with a roll call.
Yes, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Gallagher?
Aye.
That was an aye.
Yes.
Mr. Gottman?
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
No?
Mrs. Warning?
No.
Mr. Williams?
No.
Mr. Caleri? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
He said no.
No. Mrs. Cerrucci?
No.
Mrs. Delaney?
Aye.
Motion fails. 5-4. Okay, section F, administrative report, items for discussion.
For item number 1, we have facility agreements with the WPA Beekeepers Association. Item number 2, we have several policies approval. The following revised new policies that were placed on public display beginning June 30th, 2020. We have policy 006, attendance at meetings via electronic communications. Policy 217, graduation requirements. Policy 335, family and medical leaves. Policy 626, federal fiscal compliance. And policy 802, the equity policy. Note these draft policies can be viewed in board docs. Under the policies tab, select draft, then select book, then a drop down and select public review.
Item number 3, approve the prices of the applicable a la carte food items for the district's food service department during the 2021 fiscal year as depicted in Exhibit A. Please note, the above a la carte food prices for the 2021 fiscal year do not include any increases. The only food service department price increase during the 2021 fiscal year is the cost of breakfast, which was required to be increased by 5 cents per the paid lunch equity calculation for compliance with the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. This price increase was previously approved at the June 30th, 20 regular board meeting. Item number 4, approve and certify that procedures listed below will be followed in regards to the Title I funds during the 2021 fiscal year, specifically Improving America's School Act of 1994, which reauthorized the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, mandates that a LEA may receive Title I funds only if it implements programs, activities, and procedures for the involvement of parents. This improvement and implementation must follow the guidelines listed below. 1, parent involvement activities and procedures must be planned and implemented with meaningful consultation of parents and participating children. 2, the consultation must be organized, systematic, ongoing, informative, and timely in relation to decisions about the program. And item 3, the activities and procedures must be of sufficient size, scope, and quality to give reasonable promise of substantial progress towards achieving the goals. Item number 5, accept the following district donation received during the 2021 fiscal year, specifically from PPG Industries Foundation, $300 check. Recipient Justin Stevens, for utilization of benefit of the students at the Gateway High School. Item number 6, approve the district's total estimated receipt, estimated at $356,466, purchases and payments for the following actual and estimated items from the COVID-19 Health and Safety Grant federal funds during the 2021 fiscal year, and all those items are listed below. And again, just to note that the above purchases are contingent upon the district's full receipt of the COVID-19 Health and Safety Grant federal funds. These purchases are 2021 fiscal year purchases with the revenue and expenditures previously being included in the 2021 fiscal year general fund budget. The remaining $77,406 in COVID-19 Health and Safety Grant federal funds indicated above will be utilized for some additional district purchases still to be determined. Item number 7, approve the district's purchase of 14 new automated external defibrillators and the corresponding accessories, which includes batteries, adult pads, and pediatric pads, in the maximum amount of $38,000 during the 2021 fiscal year. Note, the above purchases for the 2021 fiscal year will be paid for from the previously included revenue expenditures in the 2021 fiscal year general fund budget. The district is trying to obtain clarification from the state as to whether 2 previously awarded district safety grants, both initially awarded for an SRO, would be able to be utilized to fully cover or partially cover the above required purchases of new AEDs and the required corresponding accessories.
Any questions? Mr. Gorman?
All right, for under section 6, just for transparency, under other products, quantities, and vendors to be determined, between the items listed there, first off, do we have any idea, just a ballpark figure about how many we're looking to get, since we have a monetary value tied to them? Like, we have MacBook Pro, like, do we know, is it just one MacBook Pro? Are we looking to get 10, 20, 30?
No, there, the money there it was written into the grant, and that is for approximately 10 MacBook Pros to be utilized by teachers in order to complement the remote instruction.
Okay. And for the, there's other items to be identified. Are those just going to be similar to what was listed, or are they going to be something different?
It could be. There's actually a second portion of this COVID-19 school health and safety grant federal funds that the state has not released as of yet. We're still waiting for that to happen. Just to give you an idea in terms of some items that were already listed here and or estimated to be purchased, the initial amount released through e-grants is $254,894. So there's still approximately $101,572 that we are waiting for the state to release. And I believe that the total amount, if I recall, is about $49 million that they're still deciding whether they're going to release it as originally intended as part of this or what they're going to do with that. So we're still waiting for a piece of that. But as we typically do with federal items, we like to at least release the initial preliminary budget amounts. And then we do usually follow up with the final amounts like we do with the various title funds, just as an example.
And the other questions with regard to item number 7. So we're looking at using the original SRO grants. Is there a way we'd know if those are going to be usable by the next meeting?
No. That was why when we were building the budget, I made sure to include those items in there. We're still trying to get clarification. We have 2 state entities that we're trying to get clarification from to see if we could repurpose these funds or not. So that was the reason why we had specifically budgeted in the event that, you know, if for some reason, and this is worst case scenario, if we're unable to utilize them as originally intended, we may forfeit those funds.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
That was my question too.
That seems like.
Yeah.
100.
I mean, the forehead thermometers I thought are about $80.
What type of thermometers and what are they being used for?
These thermometers are part of the reopening plan that just to make them available at the building level in the event that they're needed.
So we're paying $2,000 for a thermometer? Is that what it comes down to? I don't like math, but is that what it, $2,000 for a thermometer?
No, the way that the grant worked is our district was given X amount of dollars, and we put a lot of these different items in there, but some of these items, it's not an exact number that will be utilized just for thermometers.
The thermometers is relevant because we're talking about paying somebody to do temperature checks later on in the evening. So if we buy $20,000 worth of thermometers, who's going to be doing the temperature checks with those? We have 1 nurse per building. What is the thought behind that?
At this point, we put that within the grant because it was on the table to potentially use them with some of the sports teams, and we know that we just want to make them available within the building so that we had a stockpile of the thermometers.
This would cover Gateway Middle School, Mossad Middle School, the elementary buildings, and the high school.
So I guess my point is if the board decides that they want to pay a service to do the thermometer checks, we don't need to buy $20,000 worth of thermometers. That money could possibly go toward the service.
Potentially, but this was written into the grant. The grant was due approximately a month and a half ago whenever the discussion was a little bit different. So I don't know I would have to speak with Paul to see if we could potentially go in and reallocate some of those funds, even though we earmark them for thermometers within the grant.
All right, so we're not sure if they can be allocated differently.
Okay, another question. The sanitation stations, what are those?
Sanitation stations are, we wrote that in part of the reopening plan, and within each classroom, within all of our schools, we have these sanitation stations, which are going to be a little area within the classroom. It's going to have some masks available for students. You're going to have some disinfectant wipe, also some hand sanitizer, tissues, etc. Just so there's a go-to place right within the each classroom, so that we can ensure a sanitized environment.
This is not, this is a item for discussion tonight, correct?
Correct.
So if this isn't going to get approved until next week, are we confident we're going to be able to get these products in place in time? Bob's giving me a, okay. We've confirmed they're in stock. Once we pull the trigger next week, we should be able to have no problem.
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
Ma'am, what's the difference between the fever-worn devices and the thermometers?
Fever-worn devices are actually a unit that goes on the wall. Micah has done some research on, where potential visitors can actually put their hand under the fever-worn device, and it will scan their hand and indicate whether or not they have a temperature.
How many devices?
This includes one per each school building.
So would somebody have to read that if they come in? Is it like where they sign in, like where they swipe their license plate? Would it be, I'm just asking where it would be located, and if it would show that there is a temperature or something when I stick their hand under it, who's going to be reading that to see that?
They're going to be situated right at the beginning of the building there, you know, where the places that we have a lobby in between before parents can come in or visitors can come in. They'll be situated right there. Micah's looking into whether or not they can be wired right into a Skyward, or some of the technical aspects of it Micah's been going through.
Okay, thank you.
I was trying to get Kathy Bishop on the line. She's our school nurse. And it looks like that she may not.
I'm here, Mrs. Cerruti.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, we were
trying to
get you on.
We're trying to get you on. Do you have anything that you want to add to this discussion, Mrs. Bishop?
Well, I guess I'm curious how many thermometers were purchased, because back in June when I was talking with Michael Brown about the airport style thermometers, which are scanners which we decided were not reliable in their effectiveness. I'm curious what type of thermometers are being ordered through this grant money and the numbers of them, because at that time in June, we had talked about getting one handheld infrared thermometer, touchless thermometer for each school teacher in the district. And that can be done at a reasonable cost. Some of them are like $30 a piece. Some of them are like $50 a piece. And by doing it in homeroom rather than on entry, the student has that 5 or 6 minutes as they put their things away and make their way to homeroom to acclimate to the building. So the temperature would actually be more reliable, rather than, were they too hot on the bus? Were they too cold on the bus? Did they just walk in? Are the doors all open? You know, when you're doing it on entry, you may or may not get reliable readings. And so, you know, I'm back to the question of, do we have a guesstimation through this grant how many thermometers were ordered?
At this point, we don't have the exact numbers of thermometers. The way that the process for the grant went, we put in an average number for what we may utilize, and we could even potentially use those for the wider spread infrared thermometers if we were going to go that route.
So you're saying nothing's been purchased yet. You put in the grant, $20,000 for thermometers, and you could work with Mrs. Bishop on determining what would be the right way to spend that $20,000, correct?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, that's great. It is great. Why isn't that not great? That Mrs. Bishop
Well,
can
we have
get,
these items in stock already in the building.
No, we do not.
I carry stock there normally, and I have to carry on any given.
he's got his own inventory that's unrelated to the
I
grant.
misunderstood what you said.
Yeah, I carry the disinfectant wipe, those every single day of the year. You know, we carry a lot of them because we use them. So we have those in stock. That, you know, that we keep there. We keep rubber gloves in stock every single day because our people use them. So those are items that you see there that we have on any given year, not just this year. Those items. Now, the items Dr. Chakey is talking about is over and above, not what we would normally use.
All right, and do the thermometers fall under that or not?
Thermometers do not fall under what I would normally keep.
All right, I misunderstood what you said earlier.
Yeah, those normal items that we use no matter what the situation is.
So your workers, you do not require a thermometer temperature check?
Not at this point in time. It's not what, it's not required by the district at this point in time.
Are we going to require teachers to be tested when they come in the building?
Teachers will self-screen themselves prior to entering.
Okay.
If they display any type of symptom, they will be required to go to the nurse, and then of course the temperature will be checked and assessed.
Okay, question. I know, Michael, I don't know where you're at, but we're looking at 300 Bluetooth microphones and the hotspots. Have they been looked into or purchased?
Yes, those POs have gone out.
And we're guaranteed to get those prior to school starting?
That I'm not sure unless Micah has some specific information related to those vendors.
Thanks.
All right, anything else in this section? All right, last call, and let's move to section G, which is resolutions by board members, which is really more of items for discussion. So the first item on here is Mobile Health Services, which is the company that would provide screenings to all of our students prior to the start of school. Because it was not recommended by PDE, we did not have any information on this. And we were approached by the company, the owner, long-term resident, businessman, fireman of Monroeville, Harold Katofsky, owns Mobile Health Services, who, as a non-disclosure, several years ago, Mr. Dice was a silent investor in the opening of that company, just to get that out there. I approached the rest of the board and I said, is there anyone interested in a price on what this would cost? And almost everybody said yes, they wanted a price. So we have a price on the service. Mr. Shaw, did you want to talk about it at all, or?
Sure, I can mention a few things about it. Now, again, in reviewing this, probably the biggest item on it is it's $9,800 per week based off of a 9-week contract. So essentially that's $9,800 times 9. That would be a total cost of $88,200, which I will have to note that is not currently in the budget for the 2021 fiscal year. But in general terms of this type of service, this definitely is a niche service. And as far as procurement of services, services are not required for multiple quotes. In terms of service, it's a request for proposal, not a bid as far as a bid for say like a particular product for that. So again, in terms of services, requests for proposals, we call them RFPs. And again, just in looking at this, wanted to mention that. I know that inquiry came up as well. And, in terms of, are we required to get other quotes for service? No. Plus to mention that, again, this is, in my opinion, a niche service. I'm not even sure how many other businesses would even offer such a unique type of service.
We just got the information on this. So you're saying unique. What is unique about this?
Well, I'll say unique and one that I've never heard of it before. I can honestly say that my email inbox gets bombarded on a daily basis, as well as the rest of our administrators, with different items out there related to COVID. I've never seen anything like this come through in terms of any potential opportunities. Let's put it that way.
So, Kathy, if you want to ask questions, I'm just going to ask, what is pre-screening? Is it just a temperature taking, or what?
Well, I can read a little section of this since everybody just got it tonight. So, for example, there'll be technicians provided by the company at each of our facilities, multiple teams at multiple entry points, and each building is roughly the same descriptions. It says, mobile health services would have our medically trained staff on site to conduct temperature screenings via daily calibrated infrared, no-touch thermometers, and a quick visual sign for any symptoms that may prompt additional screenings in accordance with the AIU, PA Department of Education, Health Department, CDC recommendations. Oral temperature checks can be done as a verification to a high reading. Once cleared, mobile health services staff will direct students or staff to proceed to the entrance and follow in-school instructions. If a student or staff member is not cleared, designated school staff member will be notified and student will be escorted to specifically designated isolation area to await transportation arrangements home. Guardian and student or staff member will be instructed by school staff as to follow up and return protocols. For parent drop-off, students will be checked prior to parent leaving to ensure ease of transportation home if needed. So yeah, it's pretty much temperature screening, it looks like to me.
Are they there? I'm sorry. Are they there all day? Because you're talking
No.
about students coming in
Nope.
late.
They're there from about 40 minutes, it looks like, at the start of the school day.
Myself and Dr. Chaiky did have a Zoom meeting with Mr. Katofsky and an associate, and the services they would offer would be identifiable individuals who would situate themselves upon entry into the building, would provide screening services for the district via infrared thermometers, taking temperatures, answering questions, identifying individuals who may be susceptible to corona symptoms, and then they would be quarantined and await a parent pickup. These services would be offered at all of our schools, and the price that was quoted was the $9,800 per week.
So by using this service, we would not have to use the services of teachers or aides or others doing it. They would solely be responsible for doing it.
That is correct.
Have we talked to our teachers union to see if it would be a problem to have them do this in homeroom? If we bought our own thermometers?
We have not discussed this with the teachers union. The union has complied and has done an excellent job with our metal detectors. We're still working out the details of that. That would be forthcoming. Also understand that Pennsylvania Department of Education is not necessarily requiring the service. They understand as students.
No, this is above and beyond if we do this.
Mr. Short.
Yes.
Do we have any idea how many extra people are going to be in the building in order to provide this service? My concern is that we want our students to have as few contacts as possible. That's been the whole point since we all went home is that we're all supposed to limit our contacts with other people and have as few people as possible. By utilizing our homeroom teachers and utilizing infrared touchless thermometers in homeroom, again, I feel you'll get a more accurate temperature because the kids will have had a chance to acclimate to room temperature, and you already have exposure to those teachers. We don't want our students exposed to an additional person. And so I'm concerned about how many extra people are going to be in the buildings.
It's a great point, Mrs.
And,
Bishop.
and Mrs. Bishop, I do appreciate your input and understanding that there are logistical issues that we discuss internally within every buildings. And that information we can discuss further down the road, but understand that it would be an administrative recommendation on how this would be operating if approved.
Or we could drop another 10 grand a week for a screening company to screen the screeners.
Hey, my job is to get data for people to review, and you guys can make a vote on whether you want to do it or not. I think, oh, go ahead, Mr. Gallagher, I'm sorry.
A thought in the midst of this is, and this is neither speaking for or against this option, just a question. I think that as we approach this school year, our teachers are adjusting to a completely new dynamic of education. Trying to get adults to keep their masks on when they're supposed to is nearly impossible. I can't imagine policing the children with masks. Making sure you don't have too many in the hallway, making sure you're going the right way in the hallway. On top of teaching and just the regular things, that although temperature check may not be the time intensive, if you have a classroom of 15 students, taking about 30 seconds to take each temperature, understanding this is in homeroom, but you're really cutting down the amount of time that's left over for the other matters you need to take care of. And I think just adding something else to the teachers, it should be something we take into account as we consider this as an option. Also, when we have the teachers, we have face shields. We're getting plexiglass for the desks, so that they are reducing their risk exposure of the children who may be bringing something into the classroom, and then we want to have them suddenly come in closer contact with the children to take a temperature. So, although having other people in the building may bring in an outside influence of COVID, we're also bringing in closer proximity to our teachers, the 15 students a day. So just pointing out those things, like I said, neither for or against this, it's just the complexity of all these issues, and at the same time, it's just ringing in the back of my head that we're, $250,000 on stuff to keep the children and teachers safe on the previous page, minus the electronics, and then $88,000 here, and
Well, that's assuming you don't. In my mind, I would be open to doing something like this for, the clause in here says 2 weeks notice to cancel. I thought if we did something like this, we would do it for maybe a month and get a sense or a peace of mind for our families, and in hopes that we wouldn't have any issues and we could discontinue the service. But I agree, that's an awful lot of money we don't have to spend unless we get some more grant money, and we want to look at spending grant money on something like this. It's not in our budget.
right,
So
but it's
whatever we
not
don't,
put on our teachers too.
it is, I know.
And that's where I was at logistically, that this is something internally with the building principals that they know their buildings, and we do not want to overload our staff coming back to this environment. It's essential. I appreciate the thought process, but this is an internal matter through administration.
Sure, we have Kathy Bishop as our nurse, which has nurses in all the buildings. I personally feel that she should be involved in what administration is recommendation, is what you're thinking of. She had sent me, we were talking prior to this coming up, we had a floating nurse. It cost about $30,000 that we would have in the district. I can forward the email to the rest of the board. I gave it to Mary Beth and Dr. Short saw it this evening. That I really feel that Kathy Bishop should have a say-so with what you're doing with students as far as medically, because that's who we have to take care of our students. And, you know, I'm just going to say one other thing. You know, you did disclose that Mr. Dice is a silent partner in this. I personally feel that's a conflict of interest, being when I wanted to help out in classrooms for paraprofessionals when there were very limited, I was berated because it was a conflict of interest, and that was with no money. So we're putting out a big amount of money here, and whether he gets any or not, but I still feel that's a conflict of interest.
I got a couple things. One, obviously, it's a lot of money. I'm not an expert in any of this. I don't think anybody in this room is. I'm not sure about the efficacy of doing this, because it's not, you know, a temperature is not really the best indication of somebody carrying this virus, especially from what I've seen and read in younger people. When they are carrying it, they are asymptomatic. So I don't know how much we're actually going to stop with temperature checks. That being said, if we decide that that's something we do want to do for the sake of the peace of mind, which, by the way, was the argument for something else that just failed. So I find that ironic. But I think I'm not against the idea of doing this or the idea of even hiring this company. I have a serious problem with the process of how this is going on right now. Being that, as Mr. Schott said, this is a niche and a very unique service. There's nobody in this district that can gauge what this should cost, what it should entail, and what we should expect. I think that's the purpose of the bidding process, is when you have something that you don't know, you can't put a finger on a number, you put it out to bid, see what different companies are offering, see what they want to charge for it, and you pick with your best conscience. Unfortunately, because of the way this has been handled, we no longer have that option, because the dollar amount's already on the agenda. So I feel like we've been just kind of pinned into a corner here.
But I did a little research myself. I didn't get any formal bids. But this comes out to like $29 an employee. I know it was in the newspaper. Westmoreland had a company out there, and it was $60 an hour, and then $90 an hour for overtime. And then in my professional side, where I work, I've looked into this too for my business, and that $60 range. I mean, one was like $58 a person.
Were these for a school district?
It wasn't for a school district. No,
I think we're apples and oranges.
Was it a temperature check screening?
It was a temperature. It was, yeah, for the same service. Just it wasn't students. It was employees.
Right. How many employees? 3,000.
I'm not real sure what you're getting at, but no.
I'm saying that, if you buy a can of something at the grocery store, it's one price. If you buy 5 gross of them, you're probably getting a different price.
The $60 an hour to check 500 workers that come in at 8 in the morning, it costs $60 to check 500 people, as opposed to 20 kids get off a school bus, then 20 more get off a school bus, then 20 more, and all of a sudden you're starting to add up $60 an hour for all this time for a smaller amount of throughput.
Right, and just because of the size of the volume of the contract and the length and the size of the contract, I think we could have potentially had a completely different hourly rate on that bid. We don't know because we didn't do any bids.
All right, so there's the other side of the argument. I'm trying to be as completely dispassionate on both sides of the question. So how many other school districts have done this? 0. So how can we get money from the federal government if we launch this project and it turns out to be quite effective? We don't know. What if it prevents one terrible sickness or one school from shutting down? That's worth its weight in gold. So there are arguments on both sides of this, and if we err on the side of taking the lead, we might be able to get some money, or we might be able to stop the school from being shut down. On the other hand, it's real money. What is it, $9,500 a week or whatever it is? It's real money. So we've got both sides of the equation to struggle through with on this again. Another issue, because there's no clear answer.
I don't think we're going to take the lead, though, if we choose this. Penn Hills.
I'd like some other school to take the
Penn
lead.
Hills. Penn Hills took the lead on this.
I'm just saying.
We're using taxpayer money from grant bailouts.
Your decisions off of that.
I'm just making a comment.
You know what, I was wondering, and because someone else had asked, would it actually be less expensive to use nurses, nurses assistants, and the other medical people that are subbing as nurses or whatever, as opposed to using this particular?
We would have to cost that out. Also, accessibility of nursing staff, hours,
We
et
have
cetera.
nurses in every building, right?
Correct. So if the board would so choose to have the administration put together feasibility plan that would be cost out with, and I'm just throwing out different scenarios, whether or not that be our employees. And that covers a wide range of individuals that could possibly do this with a similar type of service. We can maybe get that in the hands of the board just to see.
Yeah, there's another tangle to this. I'm sorry, there's a lot of ripple effects of this. So let's say this, our buses are used to take some of our kids to our schools and to career technical centers and to private schools or other places. Okay, so the bus driver could be adversely affected, and now that bus driver carries that disease around all day. How many times a day does the bus driver get? See, it's too hard to think through.
And understand the disease itself, COVID, is, people could be carriers and asymptomatic.
For days.
So they can
before
walk in,
their temperature goes up, right? So
the temperature is normal. Go about their business, go home the next day, have a test, wait for the results, still come to school.
Right, so even if we would go to this and somebody would come in and their temperature would be normal, they could still have the disease. So.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Hence why the recommendation of not proceeding with
On
it.
the other hand, if someone thinks that they're asymptomatic and all of a sudden they do have a temperature and this finds it, now it's worth its weight in gold.
Right.
What if you had parents who were willing to volunteer, whether it's PTO parents or just parents who would volunteer?
Then you're exposing them again to more.
Yeah, Kathy Bishop just said it's better to try to vet and limit the quantity of professionals.
But I'm saying not all.
Yeah.
Well, the company that is doing this, they're vetted in terms. When you've had
Well, they're
parents
medical
work with
professionals, but-
volunteering, aren't they vetted?
Yeah, and
Reading through this as we were talking, Kathy, to help real quickly answer your question, I saw Gateway High School, it was 4 techs. My side was 3. Gateway Middle was 3. Ramsey was 3. University Park was 3. It's right here. It says how many techs are going to would be at each school. Like if I read the one, just because I'm on it, says University Park. It said they would provide 3 technicians total to screen students and staff. 2 technicians would be the bus drop-off area. 1 technician at other entrance. And it's worded the same for all of them. So most of them are 3. The high school was 4 techs.
They're not all starting at the same time. So these would be going from one building to another.
No, each building. See, the reason why this is so expensive is because you have to get everybody, according to this
There's
plan, if we
different
did this, you have to get everybody
There's
screened
different
before
circles.
school starts. So you have hundreds of students that you have to get through the doors and screened within 15 to 20 minutes. So the staffing is the cost. It's $29 an hour per technician, and we have 3 to 5 technicians in every school every day to do this. So I think I want the public to know is that the board is just trying to look at options of things we can do to keep your children safe. Now, we know, as Dr. Short said, nothing that we do is foolproof. we want to do our due diligence to keep your kids safe, but then we have to weigh the costs associated with that too. And we also need other options, and we need to input from the families. Because right now, the plan is that the parents have to screen their children before sending them to school. If every parent in the district emails and says, we're good with that, we're comfortable with that,
That's one thing.
that's wonderful. That's great. I think we need some feedback. I think I keep trying to stress that we had no idea what this was going to cost because it wasn't recommended. It also wasn't recommended in our sports plan, but the board added that as a mandatory temperature check, if you remember in June when you approved our back to sports plan. So the board recommended temperature checks for our sports kids. It would make sense for us to find out what it would cost to actually implement that for our students. If we decide it's too much money and it doesn't outweigh the benefit, then that's fine. But I think we need to think about it, and I think we have options, and I think we need community input. I mean, we really need the parents' input to say, yes, I trust that I can do this for my child and everybody else will too, or no, I would be really comfortable if you spent the money on something like this or try to find a more affordable option. I'm really looking for community feedback.
So I just want to add to that too. I'm going to use the irony word. I get that a lot actually, and this is what I struggle with. Dr. Short, you're diligent. I love it. You follow the guidelines. You follow the recommendations that come down. And here's where I get confused. So the state's not requiring this. State guidelines, school district, they're not requiring this.
This week.
Right, well, this week. But the CDC is. The WHO is. This is on their list of recommendations, which is why I don't have good data for schools, but I have pretty good data for businesses. And I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but I'm very knowledgeable about this as I've been working hand in hand with infection prevention doctors from the various hospitals. They're recommending this. They can't go can't go anywhere without getting the temperature checking. That's where I'm struggling is getting those guidelines. I mean, this is one of the bigger buildings that a lot of people are going to be in. I just wanted to share my struggle with what I'm thinking about this.
Question. Coach Hall, were you on the line?
I saw him there earlier, yeah.
I am.
With your screening with the athletes, is there only one person doing the screening or is there others?
It depends on the organization or the activity and the number of student athletes or participants in it. Some of the activities, Chris, as our trainer, is able to handle the whole group, smaller groups. Others, coaches are involved. For instance, when there's 50 or 2 groups of 25 or something like that, then we're looking at having multiple people do the screenings simultaneously.
But you're using your own coaching staff to do the testing?
Yes, when it's in addition to Chris, it is someone from that organization typically.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question on that too. And I maybe should know this answer, but is this, I know we, as the board, we wanted to do the temperature checks for the athletes prior to practices and games. Is that a WPIAL guideline now or a PIA guideline or?
It's not because of the uniqueness of each district's plan. It was something that initially, if you recall, was recommended or could be included as a fail-safe as part of the screening, but there is no documentation from the PIAA or the WPIAL that are requiring it. Again, because they're giving some autonomy to each district to make those decisions, what's included in their health and safety plan.
Recommending, not requiring, or they're not even I missed that part. They are recommending it, but not requiring it.
I'm not even sure that I can find a recommendation in there anywhere. They do talk about some CDC guidelines, some other guidelines, Department of Health guidelines, and temperature checks are discussed. But again, they did give a lot of autonomy to every district to be comfortable with their own plan and to write their own plan. So that was the plan that we decided, you all decided, and everyone collectively, that it made a lot of sense to make it a requirement for our plan.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I got one just quick question. Just throwing it out there. I mean, if you want to discuss it, fine. If not, that's fine too. In terms of options on what to do with this, is it possible that we could partner maybe with Allegheny Health Network to do the temperature checks and screenings?
Um, I don't believe they offer that service.
Yeah, if we put this out to bid, they may well,
Yeah.
very well provided a bid.
Hey, Rick, if you can find a company that does it, I'm more than willing to entertain
That's why you
bids.
put it out for bid. They find you. If we just left the number out of this, we could still do that.
Well, you can still do it. You
We
can still do it.
it.
We can still do it.
No, you can't.
Well, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to appease you, Mr. McIntyre.
I'm trying to appease my voters and the taxpayers. And be responsible with $100,000 worth of money for 9 weeks.
Is Mrs. Bishop still on is she still available?
I'm still here, Val.
Hey, Kathy, do you have any recommendations or your thoughts? Do you feel you should sit down with administration and discuss what can be done? I feel, my personal feeling is you are the nurse that oversees our students. Administration is educating our students. So I feel that you should have a say-so in what's happening. I mean, you could disagree.
I would be more than happy to meet with administration and talk about this. I do feel that there are several ways that this could be accomplished. You know, certainly the mobile service is one, but I think it could be accomplished in-house as long as we can get an adequate number of thermometers for the first day of school. And so I'd be more than willing to meet with people and, you know, more than willing to, you know, bounce ideas off of each other.
And Kathy, did you meet with Dr. Chakey a couple days ago?
I did, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that. And he's our pandemic coordinator.
Yes, and it was a very good discussion.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on. But Mr. McIntyre, I just wanted to be clear that these last two items are only on the agenda for discussion purposes.
Right.
There's not really a motion
No, that
or
number
a
didn't happen.
favor of anybody. Well, I think it's important that the board knew what the cost
You
was,
could have
but
distributed that to the board.
I guess I could have, and I apologize for not doing that. But me adding this, again, is not an endorsement or anything. It is merely giving board members more information to make educated decisions and giving the public opportunity to know all options out there. That's all.
We don't know all options. We know one, and now we're handcuffed to one.
No, we're not, because Mrs. Bishop is going to meet with the staff. We talked about the grant money, we talked about the thermometers being ordered, and we talked about the teachers union. So I expect when we come back here next week that we will have some more information and we'll be able to make some better decisions on how we want to move forward. Anybody else? All right, let's move to the next controversial issue, the reopening plan change. Again, let me just give a little background. This is actually going to be removed from the agenda. We're not voting on anything this evening, but this was added to the agenda because I have to add something to the agenda to open it up for discussion. There are several board members who, upon thought, reflection, news, other districts, things that happen on a daily basis, conversations, who felt like there were certain areas that we weren't serving our students. And one of those areas was our special ed students. And another one of those areas was with our elementary students who have working parents. And there are several board members who just wanted to bring up this issue for discussion to see if there was anything at all that we could do to better improve our plan by adding additional services, adding additional days to those special needs students and to those elementary students. And I'm going to open it up for discussion. We kind of know the answer to that question is actually probably a no, and we'll have our solicitor and other people give input on this. But I think the reason that this is on here is because of those two issues. But then, yesterday we got new guidelines from the health department giving us specific data to look at on how we could move to a 5-day, and we don't meet that data. And if we move forward on something that's against a recommendation, then we open up ourselves up to litigation. If we offer 5 days to some kids and not all of our students, we subject ourselves to litigation. If we don't meet the needs of our students with IEPs, we subject ourselves to litigation. If we don't follow the guidelines from the health department or PDE and one of our students gets COVID, we subject ourselves to litigation. Watching the State House education hearings that occurred last week, it was actually mentioned that districts should be considering sending aides and paraprofessionals into the homes. Okay, if we did that, we would again be subjecting people to liabilities, employees, families. So the bottom line is whatever we do is the wrong decision. And that's what I think the public, I want them to hear these discussions and to know the hearts of the board members and to know that our hands are tied and there's things that we're not happy with about this plan, and we're doing the best we can, and we're talking about options, and we're always trying to do better. And as Dr. Short had said to me earlier, we want our kids back 5 days as soon as possible. Everybody does, including Dr. Short, including the administration.
It's the goal.
We want our kids back 5 days a week. But I think you can see that our hands are tied. And like I said, everything we do is going to be wrong, because on the right hand it's wrong and on the left hand it's wrong. If that makes sense to you.
Online or remote?
Yeah. So I'll admit, full transparency, I was one of the board members that was, I think our kids need to be back for 5 days, and then we have new information that Mrs. Cerrucci's right. I don't, that's not possible for anybody at this point right now. But I do have concerns for our IEP kids after what we learned in the back. Very confident in our administration and our teachers. I have a lot of struggles I probably can't air right now. Being that our House and our Senate and the state don't get to vote on anything and don't even get to discuss it, and Tom Wolf gets to make all the decisions, I got a problem with that. And I think that's what's hamstringing us right now. I don't know how to get our kids back 5 days right now. I think they need to be back 5 days right now. There's a lot.
And I think everyone agrees with you, Mr. Clary, that it's not optimal to have our students learning remotely or online. There's no one in our administrative team, community, teachers that would agree that students being at home attempting to understand instructional design and lessons and everything else associated with it is optimal. It's not. We all understand the need for our children to be at school, learning, socializing, for the well-being of themselves and others surrounding them. We're in a pandemic, probably the worst pandemic we've ever seen in 100 years. It's disruptive to every facet of everything that we're going through in our daily lives. It's disruptive. The guidelines have been set forth by the governor's office. Secretary of Education Pedro Rivera sent out a chart indicating the amount of cases, percentage rate, and we fall right in the middle of that moderate range, as I showed Mrs. Cerrucci. So it's not even like we're near the rate that would allow for full return to school. Am I hopeful? Am I optimistic that we can get there? Yes. But there has to be a lot of changes to how we all view and deal with this disease. And I'm not here to profess one way or another, but the goal is to get the kids back in school. And I've maintained since day one that this plan is simply a plan and it's fluid. A lot of movement in place, as we've seen over the last 48 hours. If we're able to meet the goals established by the guidelines, it is our hope that our children return to 5 days of education as soon as possible. The data will reflect that. And I will provide those updates. And I will list the actual site on our website that parents can refer to, and the information provided me by Secretary of Education Pedro Rivera. We are working round the clock to ensure that we're meeting the needs of every child. And I mean every child. It's important to us. It means a lot to us. We reach out to parents. We talk to them daily. Some may agree to disagree. They understand and have been sympathetic with all of us with what we're dealing with. Our teachers are returning on Monday to an in-service professional development that is unlike anything they've ever seen in their careers due to COVID and how we teach and what we have planned for technology. It will be different. It will be rigorous. It will be effective, but it does not replicate in-person learning. We need to get our kids back. But given the guidelines and the information that was shared by Mr. Dice, he understands not only what Gateway, but every other school in the Commonwealth is up against. We will get there. Not as fast as everyone would want to, including myself. And I have a 7th grader going to 8th grade in a hybrid setting. I want her back 5 days a week. But I know, given the metrics and the data, it's not happening. As always, we'll answer questions. It's been difficult. We're prepared, we're ready to go. And I know this, our teaching staff is the greatest group of teachers I've ever seen. And they're up to the challenge. And they will make this work. Thank you. Thank you.
And things can change tomorrow.
Good.
Oh, they will.
They will.
Yeah.
Paul's right, they will.
Yeah. Can I ask a question about the survey?
Yes.
How many people respond? How many responses total did we get?
I want to say responses, maybe 2,300.
Okay. How many kids go to school here?
About 3,400.
So we're shy, a third.
Yeah, meaning those kids, and in the survey, it specifically said if you do not respond, you're automatically dropped into the AB hybrid schedule.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to make a point. John said it. I think a couple people said it. Mary Beth said it. We're darned if we do, and we're darned if we don't. I wish we would have had 3,200 responses.
Yeah.
That would help. So that hamstrings us a little more. We've got to base these decisions off of 2/3 of the population versus the entire parents of the student body. We need the feedback. We need that help. Just wanted to throw that out there. And goodness knows the oligarch may change things tomorrow again, and I'm sure he will.
Usually happens on Fridays.
Oh, we got 2 days, 3 days.
Paul, to answer your question maybe a little more specifically, out of the total of 3,372 students, we had 911 that did not return a survey. We had 1,395 for option 1, which is the blended model. 244 for the Gateway Cyber Academy, and 822 for the GATE program.
And understand that 911 would be dropped into the
option 1.
AB. Option one, right?
Correct.
Okay. It's a little better than I thought.
Yeah.
And while, the 244 to the Cyber Academy, that's gonna cost a good penny. I think that shielded us quite a bit from them going to a charter cyber or another setting and kept them in the district. And I think we have to look at that as we saved a good bit of money with every kid that stayed.
And we will be addressing with the board some creative strategies for our current Gateway Cyber program with Marcy Klinger. And we'll have more information to share. We wanted to get concrete numbers. And from here, we're going to determine what grade levels these students fall into that could perhaps have some significant savings. So we are working on all options. Understand that Marcy, Dr. Klinger, does a tremendous job. She's been our director for 11 years. Typically averages around 75 to 80 students at the beginning of a year. We're looking at now 240. So that has led us to rethink options on how we can better serve the students, but also serve our taxpayers and perhaps saving some money. So we're going to have some more information that will be forthcoming soon to make a decision.
Do you have the number of how many students we lost enrollment to Gateway for private school or non-Gateway Cyber?
We can get that, definitely.
I would be interested
Yes.
to know if we've lost any students or not as a result.
While we're kind of on the subject, I've had some questions over the last week or so concerning the technology pickup for computers or iPads. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that process? Some of the questions are, obviously, when is it okay to use a personal device if they don't want to use a district device? If they have one from last year at home, do they need to bring it in and exchange it?
And I met with Mr. Brown, Micah Brown, I believe, what's today, Tuesday? Yesterday. Micah, are you with us? Micah?
Might not be able to
Swing and a miss.
talk.
He was running around so much, he might have.
I know that he met with me. He shared a memo that was going out to the families about technology and pickup. So I'm not sure if that was sent out today, but I can definitely get you the answer about how all of this would work because Micah did outline everything in the memo.
I think it might be helpful to have that memo posted to the website.
Is he writing? Is that Micah writing?
The current setup.
Can you read that?
First round of handouts today, working out some votes.
I didn't
There it
think we could
is.
talk from down there.
More will be handed out Thursday.
Micah must be in the bunker.
Micah deserves a lot of credit. I want to acknowledge him publicly
Yes.
for all he's doing with technology to try to get our meetings on TV, on YouTube, on Zoom. I mean, the man's amazing, and everybody needs to know how hard he works on the fly on trying to make all these things happen, and he does a great job.
Oh, now you're gonna give him credit.
Micah's blushing.
He
I
is.
can tell.
All right. Well, that's the last thing on our agenda other than reports. So, Mrs. Warning, do you have anything to report?
Nothing at this time. Thanks.
Mr. Ritter?
Sure. I meet with the PSBA weekly buzz. We're meeting 2 times a week. Had a really nice session today with someone who said that they've been working very, very hard on the policies. And so they tossed out about 20 policies that need to be teased with respect to lesson plans or telework, screening, physical exams, sick leave. I'm just, a couple of these I'm tossing out here. Safety, school visitors, other things. So I'll take these, I'll wrap them up, give you my notes, and we can begin to work, polish our policies that need to get touched up
Yes.
based on the latest and greatest recommendations come up from those really hardworking guys at PSBA.
They do a wonderful job. They provide us with the policy
Callahan and all
updates.
those people are just terrific.
You've seen the policy, literally every board meeting we have updates, but there are some specific policies related to COVID and online learning that we need to adjust. And I do believe I sent Mrs. Cerrucci September 10th. I'm losing my voice. Would be the policy committee meeting.
All right, so let me take another minute to say I've been on some meetings from PSBA with the western side of the of Pennsylvania, and we talk as board members are able to talk privately. Some of the things that we're all backed into the corner till we get to cry on each other's shoulders. Have you been able to figure this solution out, or have you come across this problem? So we share ideas, etc. And tell you what, a lot of these school board members are at their wits' end. I mean, Pittsburgh Public School had a meeting a couple of days ago where they went for 6 hours and then went another day for 3 or 4 hours. It was just brutal. They were reading the comments coming back from the public. For example, one of the comments say, I'm afraid of A, and I'm afraid of B, and I'm worried about C, and I'm afraid of D. And this went on for about 3 full minutes. This parent was accurately describing how much fear they have with respect to trying to keep themselves, their kids safe, everything going. And so the school board members were saying, how can we deal with this? We don't have all the solutions to this. So we wrapped up and I said, for our own sake, could I say a quick prayer? And I prayed for about 22 seconds, I think it was. And there was just dead silence after that. Everybody said, you know what, thanks. I think I knew what I prayed. I said, we don't have the answers, Lord, but you do. Give us wisdom, especially give us peace. Especially give the people of Pittsburgh School District peace. That's what they need first to come from you. Amen. Everybody said, I think, yeah, that was it. So we had some more meetings this week, and I'm still torn. I still don't know what to do because we still don't have all these answers. And so I think I've come up with the correct solution to take what we have, imperfect as it is, and put it in the hands of someone who can do much with a little, everything with nothing. And we just pledged allegiance here to the flag, and we said, one nation under God, one nation, including the schools. Now that's what we need. We need the Lord God Almighty to take whatever we have, even though it's flawed, and put his hand on it. When he does that, we have hope. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect. I mean, isn't that the pressure that we're feeling? People want us to come up with a solution and back us into the corner and then get angry at us for not having the solutions. That's a tangled web. And at the heart of it lies fear. I refuse to bow to fear. The only solution to that is to correctly put our trust, like the Pledge of Allegiance said, our trust in God. That's our isn't that who we want to be as a nation? I think yes. So that's my prayer. We take whatever we've hammered out. Thank you very much, administration and school board and parents and everybody. It's imperfect. So let's now put our hope in God, trust in him. That's the way out of this. Thank you.
I think a miracle would be good for all of us. Go ahead, Mrs. Delaney.
Hey, I'm sorry, before we move on, there was a question that came up. I saw it on here. It was, and I've heard this, several of the kids that go to Forbes. Did I ask you about this already?
Yes.
Somebody just asked, because Forbes starts in like a week.
August,
The transportation for those kids and all that?
August 20th, I believe. Bonnie, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Forbes does start on August 20th, and we have set up what we call alternate bus transportation for all of those students. So we will be transporting. We have done this in years past when Gateway and their calendars don't start at the same date. So kids are familiar with this process of the alternate busing.
The notifications go out to the children about times and locations.
Yeah, the times actually are posted on in their Skyward account. It's their alternate busing that they'll have 2 different bus times, and we started this about a year ago, so they are aware that they look at the alternate times when Gateway is not in session. We do this also with the private schools. There's 3 private schools and a charter school that we would also do this for because they ride Gateway buses in the mornings. and do a transfer to their schools. So they also will have alternate schedules, which are prepared and ready to go.
Thank you, Monty.
Sorry for interrupting. I forgot to ask that earlier.
One thing I did want to say and really commend, even though we've been getting overwhelming letters, emails and all from parents, residents, teachers, all of them that have been reaching out to us. But the one thing that I appreciated from majority of those reaching out is that they realize we're doing the best we can, and they commended us on that. They know that we're not going to be able to please everyone, and they take that in consideration by still saying they're supporting us, they're behind us. As that saying goes, nobody beats a gator. And I really appreciate it, even when they were not totally in agreement with, or even any of us, but they still reached out to us to say, thank you. We appreciate what you're doing, and we understand how difficult it is that you're doing. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention is when you think of passion, and just as I feel all of us are passionate about our kids, we want to get them back in. Our teachers, we are passionate about what's going on, and that's why John says you have to be prayerful when you're this passionate. And we did lose one of our great civil rights leaders, John Lewis, who died a few weeks ago. And I just want to end with one of his quotes. He said, "Freedom is not a state, it is an act. It is not some enchanted garden perched high on a distant plateau where we can finally sit down and rest. Freedom is a continuous action we all must take." That was quoted from John Lewis.
Thank you, Mrs. Delaney. Mr. Clary, you have anything else to add? Okay, Reverend Arthur.
The man of faith, I appreciate John's sentiment. I also want to reach out and appreciate the faith and the prayers of our entire diverse community, no matter what faith or the decision not to have a faith, that we appreciate the support that we get across the board. So to all of our communities of faith and in the Gateway area, we appreciate your support. Just quickly, as we're talking about education and things like that, and I want to caveat on this is this is not a political statement. It's a statement of honor, celebration, and recognition that today Kamala Harris became the first female of color to be on a major party ticket in the United States. She would have been 10 months old when the Voting Rights Act was passed. So from a child within 55 years, going from not having the right to vote to being able to be on a major party ticket is something that we should celebrate and look forward to more celebrations along the way. So just wanted to draw attention to that.
Thank you, Reverend. Brian Gottman.
Yes, thank you. As you guys know, I always like to try to do something happy, especially with everything going on. How serious it's been. These last few months, especially when we start resuming in-person meetings, with all the chaos going on, trying to get the schools ready to go. And with my technological issues, one thing I haven't been doing lately is my art report. Well, good news. After working with Mr. Brown, I got my iPad fixed. So I'm looking for next meeting to resume. They most likely be on the edited version of this meeting, so it will be put in there. So that's something to look forward to.
Great.
And on a personal note, since I've been on school board, I've met a lot of people. And 2 years ago, I met someone very important to me. And as of 2 weeks ago, tomorrow, or actually 2 weeks prior, she said yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm happy to report that we got one more person looking at a possible expanding the Gateway family.
That's great. Congratulations,
to
Brian.
you and extend my condolences.
So that is all.
That's great. Thanks for sharing good news. Scotty Williams.
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre.
I think I have plenty I want to say, but I think I regret 90% of it. And I don't believe about 60% of the room would hear it anyway. So nothing.
All right. Respond, not react, right? Okay, I have some good news to share too, since we're sharing personal things tonight. I would like to extend my congratulations to my nephew, John Harry, Gateway alumni, who had his second child this evening while we were at our meeting. A boy who is 6 pounds and 7 ounces. No name yet. Congratulations to John and Brittany. And also, want to just say, without getting emotional, I'm very proud of my son, Nathan. I'm proud to say that he enlisted in the PA National Guard. He is officially a member of the Army National Guard. He is proceeding to go to Penn State branch campus fall semester. He will head to basic training in January. And he's a very patriotic young man. And when I look around the country at the young people his age, and that some of them are being destructive, and I agree with protests, but I don't agree with destroying personal property. I don't agree with tearing down statues. I don't agree with vandalism. And my son is enlisted in the military to go and defend his country. He's quite a man of honor, and I'm saying that publicly because I'm proud of him and his decision. So I didn't get too emotional. So those are my 2 announcements. With that, do you have anything else to add for this evening?
Just that we look forward to welcoming back our teachers on Monday, 17th. 4 days of in-service plus a clerical day. We also are prepared for school to start. And I want that to be comforting for our parents to know that we will be ready, we will be there for our children.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? We're adjourned.
Yeah.